Is Transformers 1 a good movie or a good kids movie? Let's discuss. Welcome to Movie World Plus, a place where we talk movies. I'm Andy Signor, and I'm here to review Transformers 1, the animated origin story of the Transformers. Now, let me do a preface here. I am not a huge Transformers guy. I like G.I. Joe, sorry. So I'm not as deep in the lore, the comic books, and the movie, and the show. I know the characters. I knew the main characters, and I know Cybertron, and I've watched the Michael Bay movies. This is separate from the Michael Bay movies, but the movie portrays the origin of the main bots that we know and love, particularly here Orion Pax, who would ultimately become Optimus Prime, and D16, who, if you know what he looks like, you know that's gonna be Megatron. But what's really interesting about this movie and the journey that these characters go to, this film starts with these two as friends. They're out there working together as miners, gathering an energy source. Like, there's a lot of like Transformer lingo and stuff that does sometimes get bogged down a lot, but I'm sure Transformer fans will appreciate that. But yes, there's a lot of energy. They got to be mining to get to the top war for the war, against the things. And there's a lot of that Transformer lore, but that's what's happening here. You got a society of people who've been praising the lords above to stop the war while they're doing all the work. Clearly, something seems fishy as these two begin to realize that their life as miners is kind of unfulfilling. Orion Pax wants to prove himself and prove that he can help solve the war and find the codec or whatever it was called, the MacGuffin thing that's going to save the day. So he proceeds to keep, doing things he's not supposed to. But I got to be honest, the action scenes, the moments with this, they're pretty exciting. They're pretty fun. It's a good time. I saw it with my 11-year-old and my 5-year-old. They both had a blast, but even my 5-year-old was just on the edge of his seat because he likes the toys. This was his first Transformers movie, and he really enjoyed it. He was just not bored at all. And what I was impressed with is just how intense the story does actually get. I mean, they're robots, but there's robot destruction of these people. I guess that's how you get away with it. It's just wires and bits. But particularly the third act of this film is really strong. And I don't think it's a spoiler because they kind of are putting all this, the headline, the story, if you know anything. These two friends ultimately become enemies. And that sort of getting to that point and the realization to that point as to why it happens was pretty damn good, I gotta say. I was pretty impressed. I got emotional at one point. For like a kid's movie, I gotta say this was a good Transformers movie for me, in that it really sort of sets the tone, builds the world, starts the war, and you get to sort of see why these two friends ultimately took their paths. Now, granted, one's good, one's evil, as you know, but they did a pretty good story as to sort of justify it, if you will, why certain people can go unhinged or get that mad or have that want to seek that revenge. You know what I mean? And so that's where I think this story did a good job. I was sort of surprised how much I got invested in these robots, and particularly by the end. Now, overall, the film itself is, I would say it's a kid's movie, but it's, it definitely steps it up I think I really liked Bumblebee, if I'm going to be honest. If I'm going to say, like, what's my favorite Transformers movie? The original cartoon, I'm not counting just because I haven't seen it in forever. And I don't know if it would feel a little dated now. I know that might be ridiculous to some of you guys, how offensive. But again, I was a G.I. Joe guy. G.I. Joe movie all the way. Sergeant Slaughter, come on. Anyway, but overall, I think Bumblebee has become my favorite movie from Transformers live actions. I would say this one's a close second in that it's a really good starter, especially for kids. But I suspect Transformer fans are going to like it as well. It's rated well on some of the sites I've seen from the audience viewpoints. And it's fun. It's fun. It's pretty quick. And it does have a very fulfilling and exciting, specifically, I would say, a third act. Usually the third act in these movies always just becomes some sort of light beam in the sky, and I'm just sort of dozed out by that point. But no, at the third act of this film was my favorite part in that because you know where it's going to go. If you're a Transformers fan, you're waiting for the moment, and are they going to hit the landing? Will they pull off the relationship? And it sets up, the world and the universe that we know. And honestly, I would totally be down for a Transformers 2. Now, the voice cast was pretty stellar, pretty good. Chris Hemsworth's doing Optimus, and he's definitely trying to do his, like, you know, the what's his name, Peter Cullen voice. He's trying to do a Peter Cullen voice, but as Thor, and it worked. I wasn't mad. Brian Tyree Henry did a good job as D16, becomes Optimus. And then Scarlett Johansson, a little Avengers reunion there, plays Alita. Now, I think she was a newer addition to Transformers. I know she wasn't the original, but she's the pink car, the girl. But she, you know, she's the tough worker. She's sort of thrust into the group unwillingly and goes on the journey. And then you have Keegan-Michael Key playing B-127, aka Bumblebee. And Key of Key and Peele, he really knows how to play the jokey sidekick. I mean, it's pretty much Toad again. He didn't change too much. He's pretty much just Toad, but in a robot form. But he does have some funny gags. I like him. They do a substitute gag. Atron? Is that you, Atron? So he had some fun with it. I noticed it. John Hamm, Lawrence Fishburne play out some other characters in the film. It's a good voice cast. I didn't hate them. I was a little like, is Chris Hemsworth working for me? Am I going to like this? You know, Peter Cullen's such an iconic Transformers voice, but you can tell he's trying to go for sort of a younger, personalized, more version. And then eventually he just gets more and more secure. Optimus becomes that later. In this film, you get a little bit more emotion from Optimus, a little bit more like he wants to be what he wants to be. And I got to say, ultimately, it did work. And again, I would say I would really compliment that third act as what ultimately really sort of turned the tide for me of like, okay, I'll give that. I enjoyed it because I think it easily, if it had a really boring third act, I probably would have been very more middling of like, it was what it was. Because it is what it is, but there are some cool moments. There is some fun action as, you know, kids, you know, cartoon things, and the animation is strong. And I thought it did a good job trying to justify and explain this world of a robot war people. Like, they did their best. I've always found Transformers as a gimmick a little silly because it clearly was just a gimmick to sell toys, a very clever toy nonetheless, but still, how do you justify a whole lore and world and emotions? But they did a pretty good job. They did explain it as, and I think they were respectful to the source material while trying to make it its own. So Transformers 1, I would say, yeah, it's a good time. Is it a good movie versus a kid's movie? I think ultimately it is a kid's movie, but probably a little bit more exciting for the parents that are going. I don't think, I would say it's a Transformers movie. It's a good Transformers movie, which is obvious, but if you're a Transformers fan with kids, especially, this is your jam this weekend. Check it out. See what you think. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you haven't already subscribed here to the movie channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for all alerts, smash that like button, and leave a comment down below. I was hoping to have the kids here, but they didn't want to review this one. And I never make them do it if they don't want to do it. But they both gave thumbs up. They both liked it. So I think your kids will like it as well. Check it out this weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more movie reviews and news here on Movie World Plus.